everything. I had a chance to listen to and sing along with Cloudburst once today.
I listened. I didn't sing along because I don't know the music, but
Yeah, that makes sense.
I got to listen to it at least, which is good.
Sure.
I do legitimately feel a lot better than we were yesterday.
Sure, having that
Now that having that, because I can just listen to that through the day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be helpful.
Yeah. Well, shall we?
I have my notes up.
Okay.
I have all my stuff up already. I just want to doubly make sure. Yeah. We should be good to go. I'll tell you one thing to let me know, because I know that my video gets really choppy sometimes.
Sure.
I think that was because I was using the other camera.
Okay.
And it was wireless to my phone, from my phone to the computer. Let me know if any stuttering happens that you noticed today.
Of course.
Because I haven't noticed any.
I have not either.
Yeah, I think this is going to be better overall. Fingers crossed. For sure. All right. I should be ready to go. You can hear me fine and everything.
I can.
Good. I took apart my whole mic stand today. So, because it has these rubber stoppers that are yes, it has these rubber stoppers that create the tension for it to hold the mic.
Okay, sure.
And the mic is because it's like a boom arm, and the mic is heavy, so the rubber part pushed in too much, and then there was no tension. But I just took it out and rotated them and put it back in, and now it's super steady.
Yeah.
So, all right. Design good. I'm good.
3, 2, 1.
Ooh, Totem, I love your talks. I don't know any every day, something like that.
Yeah, that was really good.
I love your talks.
That was really nice. Honestly,
Thank
one
you.
of the better ones you've had in a while.
You know what? Thank you. And you know why? Because I remembered the song before we started, which has been
it does help.
It's been rare that I've remembered a song going into it. This season has been interesting. But hey, how's everybody doing today? Welcome in to another episode of Totem Talks, season 6.5, episode 3.
That's right.
That's what we're doing here. 6.5, episode 3.
The penultimate episode of season 6.5.
I know, fascinating stuff.
It's almost over.
Quick. It's quick.
It is.
Each episode is 25%,
but it does the job.
Yeah, it does the job, and it's fun. It's fun because it's different. It's a different 100%. Perspective. I think definitely coming at it from a more narrow viewpoint, kind of.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is a lot of fun. And if you're like, who the hell are you and what are you talking about? We're Totem Talks. I'm Pat.
I do feel that way about you.
With me. And we are taking it upon ourselves to classify every musical artist ever created and rank them via our own personally objective scale and deal with it. That's what's happening. We're going to determine the greatest artist of all time.
That's right.
So, and you get to be a part of that. You're welcome. Today, we have another episode of our guitarist series. That is what season 6.5 is.
That's right.
It's working through a bunch of different guitarists, or 8 guitarists, if you prefer.
8, a bunch. They're the same.
I mean, how much is a bunch?
I would say about 8.
I would say about 8 as well. So we're going through 2 guitarists today. And Nick, would you like to tell us who they are?
I would. These 2 gentlemen were, of course, honored with not making Rolling Stone's list of top 250 guitarists at all, in what were some controversial choices that we've already discussed. But we're kicking things off today with Peter Frampton And then we are moving on to Jimmy Vaughn.
You're damn right we are.
I am.
And truly, I mean, truly, I know we reacted to the list. Like you reacted off
I got very
camera and
upset.
then told me about it on camera and reacted again while I reacted. And it's even more of a crime that they're not on this list after
Isn't it?
hearing the albums today. I mean, I won't tell you too much. I won't give too much away in terms of opinions yet, because I have opinions,
Of
of
course.
course. Otherwise, what are we doing here? But it's fascinating that they didn't show up, because I can't name 250 guitars better than the two we listened to.
Yeah,
today.
it's bizarre.
It's super bizarre. But without any further ado, let's settle down. Let's bring it into today's episode. And we're going to talk about Peter Frampton. So Peter Kenneth Frampton is an American, or an English American guitarist, singer, and songwriter. And he was active from 1966 until the present day. So good long career for Mr. Frampton. We covered 3 albums. The unsettlingly titled Wind of Change from 1972. Then we followed that up with, controversially, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I guess.
For our formula,
For our formula.
controversially, Frampton Comes Alive from 1976.
Yeah, it had to be done.
And then we wrapped things up with Frampton Forgets the Words from 2021.
Indeed.
Now, I'll start talking about Wind of Change. I do want to say, controversially, because we never cover live albums.
Right.
We
aside from
previously-
like in
Yeah, we
specific
previously
episodes.
did live album centric episodes. But typically our formula is the first album, the most successful album, usually in terms of sales, if not in sales, in terms of charting.
Right.
It's kind of a mixed bag what ends up being the quantifier there. And then we do the last album. So we try to get a scope of someone's career that way.
Correct.
But it's hard to not do Frampton Comes Alive
Yeah.
based on the record sales, which we'll discuss.
Honestly,
but
yeah.
it's
When
too
we
much to ignore.
Honestly, in season 1, when we first decided what the formula was, like, how the happened, that was like one of the first things that came to mind, because there's just career is defined by that record.
And it just is. And so we did it. We bent our rule to
we're
talk.
flexible.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise, what are we doing? So
exactly.
That's that. But we'll
Wind
get
of
to
Change.
Frampton Comes Alive. Wind of Change. This was an interesting album for me because, you know a couple Peter Frampton songs, I think. If you're not a Peter Frampton fan, right? If you're not somebody who is, if you're not somebody who's like following Frampton, you've heard a couple of his songs. On this album, you may have heard 2, maybe even 1. For me.
Sure.
So I knew, obviously, he did a cover of Jumpin' Jack Flash, which I don't count as being one of the ones I knew because it was a cover. But I did know the song. But I knew Lady Lie Right.
Oh, interesting.
That was the one I'd heard before. I don't know why, but I knew. Not only did I know the melody, I knew the words, and I was like, "So I've heard this song."
Huh. Well, I'll tell you exactly how I knew the songs that I knew at a later time.
Good. I'm excited to hear it. Going into the album, I knew a little bit about Peter Frampton. I obviously know he's a good guitarist based on the episode he's in. And I knew that I've heard him sing enough. I know he's a passable singer. He's a good singer, even. This album was super impressive to me. It felt really together. It felt really together all the way through. It felt like the songs didn't ever feel too long or too drawn out. It felt like his guitar playing, while impressive, was never like showboaty, which I think was something that could easily happen when you're, as good at it as he is.
Sure.
And for I guess a debut album, although not really because he'd been in bands previously.
Yeah, Humble Pie.
Yeah, this was a really strong showing for me. It was simple, to the point. The cover was good. The originals were also just as good, and I had really no complaints about it. He's all over the place with this album,
Hmm.
and the collabs on this album are just intense. The people that played on this
Oh
album
yeah,
with
yeah,
him,
yeah. Hmm.
I'm talking. So you have like Mick Jones played with him, Klaus
Yeah.
Vorman, Ringo, a good
Billy
amount of people,
Preston.
Billy Preston, a ton of people played on this album with him, and it was really well done. I have no
Hmm.
complaints about it. It was an album that felt not perfect because nothing is perfect, but like I don't have a complaint. A good length,
Sure.
a good variation of
Hmm.
song, good singing, good playing. I'm happy.
Yeah. So I mean, here's the thing. I measured this album by the only metric that I have for Peter Frampton. So I knew 4 songs on this album, and I knew
Okay.
4 songs on this album because I knew 4 songs on the next album that we listened to.
Sure.
Basically, the only way I understand Frampton is via Frampton Comes Alive. Like,
Mhm, I
I
get it.
very seldom ever heard any of his studio work, but I'm fairly familiar with that.
Yeah.
So Jumpin' Jack Flash is, of course, on Frampton Comes Alive, and I always found his version of it super interesting. Like the really like slowed down version of the riff take. Like I like it. I think he fully makes it his own. And
Oh, I
like I
totally agree
yeah,
with that.
I really do like his version of the song. And then what I was surprised by is like, wow, this is a folk rock album, like most of the
Yeah.
time. And I was not expecting it to be like mostly folk rock. But I think he pulls it off really well. I think his acoustic guitar playing is really good. The song "Oh for Another Day" had, I think, the most interesting guitar solo. He definitely like was captivating my ear with his phrasing choices and his note choices.
I was gonna say a very lyrical guitarist,
Yeah, 100%.
which is very interesting.
Yes.
I
Yep.
am ever since we listened to Beck,
Hmm.
I've always like been geared more towards the lyrical guitar playing
Okay.
because before Beck, honestly, like, and we talked about this on the episode,
Yeah.
I was very guitar is measured based on how good you are at it. You know what I mean? Like I've heard, I know I can recognize when someone's good at guitar versus when someone's bad at guitar. But like Beck really made me research a lot of the more intricate, like between those
Hmm.
of what
Jeff Beck is
exists.
who you're referring to, not
Jeff
Beck
Beck, yeah,
Beck,
not
to
Beck.
be
Sorry,
clear.
Jeff Beck, the Jeff Beck
Yes.
group.
Hmm.
Yes,
I was just wanted to clarify.
it's a good clarification
Yeah, because we
because
have
if you
covered
listen
both.
to our episode of Beck, you'll hear something different from me.
Yeah, although I really like Beck.
I know, and
But
that's
anyway,
okay.
so I was pleasantly surprised. I got like a different feel from this album than I expected, and I really liked a lot of his acoustic guitar work too. Which brings us to Frampton Comes Alive. So
Yes, it does.
this album is of legendary status. It is one of, if not the most popular live albums of all time. Everything you've
Yeah,
ever heard by him, "Baby, I Love Your Way," "Show Me the Way," "Do You Feel Like We Do," all of that is from Frampton Comes Alive. Like you've never heard a song that wasn't on it, unless you're a big fan.
yeah, probably.
Um, and look, it's a really excellent live record. It's a really good show. There's good balance of the types of songs. You get some slow. What's kind of interesting is "All I Want to Be Is by Your Side." Kind of transferring that thought to from the first album where it's his studio version, it's like 6 minutes, and then on the live record it's about 3.5. And I never would have known that it was such a long song originally because I was so accustomed growing up listening to this record. That was one of my favorite tracks. So I never like I listening to the studio version was kind of a whole new journey for me.
Sure.
Um, but it's in the Grammy Hall of Fame. It sold 20 million records. It was,
Only
I mean,
20.
yeah, I know. I mean, the Talk Box, like this it is the Talk Box album. This is the album that people learn that Talk Box is a thing and the ways that it can be used. Like
Yeah,
I
this
don't
is the
think
reason
anything.
Frampton's associated with the
Yeah,
dog park.
like this is, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think when people hear Talk Box or anything related to that, Frampton, you think Frampton. They're
For sure.
inextricably linked, and it's because
I
of this
think of
record.
two things. I think of Peter Frampton, and I think of the Bon Jovi song,
Yeah, Lizard on a Chair.
"Lizard on a Chair." Exactly.
Um,
Fresh Prince
But
of Bel-Air.
yes, that's the one. But I mean, you can't go wrong with this record. I think it's a really good listen. It's long. You're in for a full show, so I don't listen to it
Yeah.
super often. But when I do, I always enjoy it. Do you feel like we do at the end? Is I think always the highlight for me. It's also one of the longest charting top 40 singles of all time. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's a good record to go to every like year or two, and really just enjoy the full concert experience from beginning to end.
Yeah, listen, you're not gonna get a different answer from
Mm,
me. I will tell you, we haven't covered a ton of live albums. I've listened to a lot of live albums, uh, for various reasons, and I am typically of a mixed opinion with live albums. I really feel like sometimes with live albums, you lose a little bit
sure.
because typically on a live album, like you're not gonna sound as good as you do in the studio all the way through.
Mhm.
And a good studio album, I think it's easier to achieve a good studio album than a good live album.
Yes, I agree.
Because with a studio album, it's much more about the writing, the music, and then like the technical process
And
to
you have a
create
million
stuff.
chances to,
Right,
you're
exactly.
gonna
Your
get it
best
until it's
take.
just right.
Mhm. So live albums are always a mixed bag for me because like yeah, you get good energy if you record the crowd right. But sometimes the crowd bleeds into the songs
Mhm,
or
mhm.
like it gets frustrating at times. This album is a flawless live album. The crowd energy never detracts from the songs.
Yeah.
I don't know what they told that crowd beforehand. I don't know if they threatened their lives, but they were like, you will let us sing and perform these songs and clap in between, energy in between. And it was really, really well done. They didn't do a ton of the talking in between
Sure.
stuff that like makes you feel
Yeah,
like you're at the concert,
right.
which honestly I'm fine with
Whatever.
because the quality of the recording
Yeah,
is
exactly.
so good.
Mhm.
Like I have to remember that this is 1975 when this is being recorded. The recording techniques they use then for live recordings are not as good
The
as they are
technology
today,
has
let's
been
say.
improved. Yeah,
The technology has since been greatly improved, and for the time, it is so crystal clear. And I'll tell you what, all of the people that Frampton brought in to play with him and Frampton himself brought their A game.
for sure.
Like all the way through, all of the harmonies are so crisp and beautiful. All of the lyrics are, all of the singing and melodies are great. His playing is phenomenal.
Yeah, and
I
shout
was
out to Bob
really
Mayo too, on who
Yeah.
played, like, all the Rhodes stuff
Oh,
and pianos on
absolutely,
this. Nailed
absolutely.
his parts.
I think everybody nailed their parts, really.
Yeah.
Like, I
No, I
think,
agree.
truly, and my one issue that I typically have with live albums is the drums,
Okay.
because I feel like drums are difficult to balance. They're either too loud or too quiet on live albums a lot of the time. All the way through, I heard every note, it was perfect, he played it well. It's almost weird because, like, I came at this album, like, I knew how much it sold, and I knew a lot of the songs on it,
Sure.
and I was like, but, like, technically, because 'cause I'd never heard Frampton Comes Alive
All the way through,
all the
right.
way through.
Yeah.
I've heard songs off of it and stuff
Yeah.
like that, but getting to hear how consistent the product was from a technical
Mhm.
standpoint was, like, very pleasing to me.
Definitely.
So, I'll go into Frampton Forgets the
Please.
Words, which I was super apprehensive about. This is dangerous territory for me. This is a round up to 50-minute album, bro. 48 minutes of fully instrumental covers. You are asking a lot of me. And I think really what it boils down to is two things: song selection, and then exactly what I said before with the first album. He is such a lyric guitar player that he is playing the lyrical melody of the songs, and it comes through very clearly. He's not ornamenting over an instrumental cover of something. It's almost like he's just doing a cover of the song, but he's playing the lead line on guitar instead of vocals,
Mhm.
which is
Yep.
exactly how I like instrumental guitar covers to be done for the most part. And I think this was great. I think you get a strong sense of how much Peter Frampton has still got it. Absolutely still got it. And I really like the song selection. I think there was some good stuff
Yeah.
here.
Oh,
You
100%.
know, the David Bowie cover, the Lenny Kravitz "Are You Gonna Go My Way?"
Which is the
You have
only recognizable song on here unless you're, like, super into any of these groups.
or have covered them on the podcast.
Sure, right, like,
So,
I
like,
knew a
"Isn't It a
couple of
Pity?"
these
from
songs from
All Things
yeah,
Must
that's from
Pass,
All
and
Things Must Pass, and I'm familiar with Reckoner because I'm a Radiohead fan, and that's
yeah.
on In Rainbows. But, like
But we did Sly and the Family Stone, So If You Want Me to
sure.
Stay.
Mhm. Yeah, it was a super, super interesting selection of, like, semi-obscure covers with a couple of ones that you might know, actually.
I totally get where you're coming from. I really enjoyed this album. This was probably, I'll tell you what, it was my third of 3 for Frampton because, like I said, it's a big ask. But the fact that I don't really have a negative to say about it will tell you a lot because I didn't get bored. It was 50 minutes and I didn't get bored, which I'm
Yeah,
very likely to do
mhm,
when this is presented to me.
absolutely. And so it will probably come as no surprise based on your review to find out this was my favorite listen of the week.
Of course.
This was like I was pretty much blown away by this. I did not expect it. And then when this is what we got, I mean, to say that he's still got it on guitar is like I
An
mean, the
understatement.
understatement of the century. I mean, his tone is perfect. His phrasing is incredible. His feel is great. The emotion that he puts into every single note is spot on. Like it doesn't get better than this playing melodies on guitar. Like
Uh,
this is pretty much the pinnacle of that
like
skill.
this truly does compare. I'm gonna forget the title of the song right now there was one Jeff Beck group song
Because we ended as lovers from
because
Blah
we
Blah
ended
Blah.
as lovers where that was the key turning in the lock of my brain
Hmm.
for instrumental guitar.
Yep.
And I said in the episode that it truly I could feel every emotion of the guitar
Yep.
almost like it was words. And I do get a lot of that from here. It helps knowing the lyrics to these songs.
Sure.
He does such a good job of conveying the same emotion that the original puts out with the words with the guitar. Like just like you said, it's truly, I think, the most underrated part of guitar that I've ever come across.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
think like the average listener
Is
looks
not
for
thinking about that, yeah.
yeah, because I think up until recently, up until we did Jeff Beck, I was the average guitar
Mhm.
listener. Truly,
Sure,
like I mean,
yeah,
I listened to a
of
lot of
course,
music, but I
but that's
listened to it was like,
not
oh, you're good
something
at
that
guitar.
you already know. It's n if you don't
Yeah,
have that knowledge and you're not thinking from the perspective of someone who plays it.
right. And now like I can listen and it gives me so much more clarity when I hear people who do that. And I
Yeah.
hear that like not only are you technically good, but your like emotions when you play are also very
Yeah,
evident.
top notch.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I don't really have too much to add to that at this point. I mean, it's just like I said, the tone, phrasing, feel, it's the emotive quality of what he's doing. If I was gonna recommend just one track, it would probably be his cover of "Isn't It a Pity?" Which I thought was just incredible. But the whole album, it's one of the best instrumental records you can hear,
Yes,
I think.
I agree. And I'll tell you what, if you're somebody who has heard Frampton Comes Alive or the songs from Frampton Comes Alive, and you'll know what they are. I mean, Show Me the Way, Baby I Love Your Way. Like, you know the Frampton songs. If you've listened to Frampton Comes Alive or maybe do on our recommendation, also listen to Frampton Forgets the Words. It's worth it.
Totally.
It's one of those things that you put on and you think you're going to listen passively because it's instrumental, and then you don't.
Yeah,
And then you
right.
don't listen to it passively. I tried to listen to it passively and ended up very actively listening to it.
Mhm. Yeah, totally. Alright, tell us about this guy, would you?
Yeah, I'll tell you a bit about Peter Frampton here. So, I was looking for some unique things, and I mean, Frampton's had he's lived a life. I could have told you that he went to the same school as David Bowie. His dad was David Bowie's teacher, and they were friendly. But how unique is that? That I knew another musician growing up.
Sure, fair enough.
Couldn't, I was
Yeah,
like,
it's
whatever.
possible.
So what I went with was
One of the artists we've discussed that I have seen in concert.
that is what I went with. Yeah, but you just said one of the, which means it's not unique,
Not
is
the
it?
only one. It's
So
unique-ish.
what I stumbled upon and found out was in the year 2000, a film came out called Almost Famous.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And Peter Frampton, not only was he an advisor for the film, he had a cameo in the film. And in the film, Peter Frampton played the tour manager of a band called Humble Pie, which was Peter
his
Frampton's
band, yeah.
band. So Peter Frampton in the movie played his own tour manager as a cameo,
Fascinating.
which I
Love
thought was
it.
a little unique little thing.
Pretty
That's
cool.
pretty cool. He played his own tour manager.
I dig it.
So we'll move on to highlights. And here's the problem. It has to be Frampton Comes Alive.
Sure.
It's clearly the highlight of his career. I will tell you that the thought process behind Frampton Comes Alive was he was being widely recognized for his talent, and his live shows were popping. He was getting huge audiences. He was getting a pull. He's getting crowds, getting a lot of recognition. Nobody was buying his records. The first 4 albums just weren't selling.
Right.
And so basically that was the idea, was he decided to take advantage of how much better his live shows were being received by recording a live album. And surely I would say it worked.
I think it worked.
So Frampton Comes Alive has sold, like you said, around 20 million records. Yeah. It's one of the best selling ever. It was recorded at Winterland in San Francisco, and truly can be considered a career highlight and one of the best moves Peter Frampton's ever made.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So career lowlights, it's hard to find. I mean, you could go with the causes leading up to Frampton Comes Alive. For some reason, his recorded music just was not selling, and that's a little bit of a low light. But I went with, in 2019, Peter Frampton was diagnosed with something called inclusion body myositis, which is a rare and incurable inflammatory muscle condition. So basically, it causes your muscles to slowly weaken over time. And that's just kind of the reality of it. So barring any type of medical breakthrough, like, he's going to lose the ability to do what he does.
That is,
which I would call a low light.
I would agree.
So nicest and meanest was also interesting for me. The nicest stuff, we'll talk about some philanthropy as we tend to do in the nicest story. So he has worked previously multiple times to raise money for AIDS and AIDS research. He performed a series of benefit concerts for the Red Cross post 9/11 to raise money for the Red Cross post 9/11.
Excellent.
And most recently, he established at Johns Hopkins University Medical Hospital the Peter Frampton Myositis Research Fund, which he donates to and raises awareness and stuff to try to find a cure for his condition as well as other myositis conditions.
Right.
Which is pretty
cool. Absolutely.
And it's good for him to use his own personal diagnosis as a platform and to raise awareness for a disease in general.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what I have for that. So the meanest thing, it's kind of a stretch. I couldn't find much mean on Peter Frampton. So he was sued in 1978 by a woman named J. Penny McCall for palimony. Now, are you aware of palimony?
Is this a combination of alimony payments and like a palomino horse?
Close.
Okay.
It's alimony, but you're not married. So it's like you're dating somebody for a long time. You're being financially supported by someone, but you don't, you know what I mean?
Okay,
you don't,
sure.
You're not married.
I get it.
So she sued him for palimony, basically under the quotes of she left her husband for him. and like fully gave up her job as a promoter and devoted herself full time to being with Peter Frampton. She traveled with Frampton. She gave up her whole life for Frampton. And then Frampton broke up with her after 5 years. And this was like right before, like, she basically did all that right before Frampton comes alive. So she made all those decisions to be with him and leave everyone for him. And
Then he
then
blew up.
right afterwards, he blew up, and they dated for a while after that. While I believe he was married, though, he didn't get divorced in 1976. Timelines make sense to me. Like, he might have still been married too. But basically, a
Okay.
judge in New York ruled that Frampton and McCall never intended to marry each other and never held themselves out to the public as husband and wife. And so the judge dismissed the complaint because to, quote, act otherwise would condone adultery. And this case did fully set a New York
I
precedent.
don't know if I love that precedent.
I
I
know.
don't know if
That's
I
what I'm
love.
saying. That's
Oh
why it's
man.
under the meanest things. Like, you could argue both
Yeah.
ways. We don't have the full story,
Exactly.
but
But I get the case that she's making. I mean,
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's kind of a
yeah,
stretch, but it's definitely the pieces are there.
yeah, for sure.
And so then for 6 degrees, Frampton's been around the block. He's been everywhere. He has, lived a life. He's been around a ton of people that Totem Talks has talked about before. So it was kind of a almost like a paralysis of choice of what I
Yeah.
was going to pick here. I went with he played Billy Shears in the Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band movie, which is, as I'm sure you know, considered one of the worst movies ever made.
Yes, I have seen it. So I know.
But it's based on an album by a band called the Beatles,
That's right.
which we've covered multiple times in various degrees. We've covered the
Yeah.
actual band, the
Back
Beatles.
when-
We've covered all the individual members.
Mhm. Back when we were in like middle school, end of middle school, early high school, there used to be like weird random channels in the high 1 or 200s that would just occasionally play movies like that, like all the Beatles movies and
Oh yeah,
different like or Tommy stuff like that. And so that was my exposure to all that.
sure, I get that. So that's really it for me. I do have a very slight potential second low light of his
Oh
career.
my. Just when you thought things couldn't get worse.
It was again. It doesn't seem to have really affected too much, but it did happen in 1978. In June of 1978,
Why June?
he was involved in a car crash, a near fatal car crash. He was in the Bahamas. He suffered a bunch of broken bones, concussion, some muscle damage. And during the pain of that, he got addicted to drugs for a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah.
And
I mean
then
that's can very easily happen.
it's very common. It is not, I mean, it's probably more common then than it was today in terms of how often it happened versus how much it's talked about.
Sure.
Because at
Okay.
least today we recognize that it's
We
happening.
definitely recognize it.
But that was something that I read and I almost put it as the low light. And then I was like, it doesn't seem to have affected him because it was right around, he was still a superstar at the time
Yeah.
and continued to be just as famous. He recovered from everything. He kicked the addiction pretty quickly after he healed.
Yeah.
I didn't count it, but it's something to discuss.
Fair to know. All right. Well, let's move on to Jimmy Vaughn. All right. Do you speak Zoomer?
No, God, no. I have no idea what was said.
Okay, because I don't fucking
I read it. I read it
man.
10 times.
Tony Blundetto, what the fuck are you talking about, man?
I read it like 10 or 11
What the
times.
fuck is a Sigma Hitler edit?
I don't know. I don't want to know.
I generally try to stay uninvolved in Hitler-related things.
As do I. As do a lot of people, I think. Not enough people. But
Not enough.
a lot of people.
More as of recently for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh man. Yeah, I was reading that and I read that like 3 times. I'm like, there's words I recognize.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like, I know that those are all separate slang words that kids that I would teach might use, but putting them all together, I don't know what it means.
I don't know.
Uh, all right. But I don't know about the Creative Society, Dr. Angel 444. If by
Yeah.
any chance you're still here.
Oh, it totally is Dr. Angel. I was reading that as
Strangle?
Drangle. I was like, oh, Drangle, that makes sense. But Dr. Angel does make more
I thought
sense.
so. But I am interested to find out what it is, if you
Yeah.
are still there.
Oh, I got to tell you a Frampton fun fact.
All right.
This could have made the episode or
Is it
could not.
his penis length?
Yes, it is exactly his penis length in millimeters,
Perfect.
which makes the number bigger.
That's why I always measure in millimeters.
No, but it was pretty cool. So he basically had this like famously customized like black
Yeah,
guitar,
with the 3 humbuckers.
and then he lost it on a plane for 30 years. And then got reunited with it after that, and he now calls it the Phoenix.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
Like, because I was like,
That's
that's
cool.
pretty fucking cool.
That's very cool.
I was like, I couldn't think of a spot to slip that in,
Mhm.
but like that's just a fun fact.
It is. That was fun.
All right. Considering there's only one thing I can pull up for Jimmy, am ready to talk about Jimmy.
All right. Then let's get into it in 3, 2, 1.
Jimmy Lawrence Vaughn Jr. is an American blues rock guitarist and singer based in Austin, Texas. And he was active from the late 1960s to the present day. We covered 3 albums, as we are wont to do. We started with Strange Pleasure, which came out in 1994. We followed that up with Out There, which came out in 1998. And then we closed things out with Baby Please Come Home from 2019.
Correct.
And I'll tell you, for some reason, I read that title. You told me the list of albums.
Yeah.
And I read that title and I was like, that feels like a Christmas album.
Oh,
I don't know just the title of it. It felt Christmassy. It's not, but I got the vibe.
I get that. Well, if it's
But
not
it is now
Christmas,
your
it's
turn.
blues when you hear a song title like that. Those are your
That's
only
a
2
great
options.
point.
All right, so Strange Pleasure. Here's what I'm gonna say. Before I get into anything else about this record more specifically, I did enjoy listening to it. I wanna make
Oh,
that clear.
no. Okay.
But let's be honest, it did not start off on the most impressive foot.
Boom, bapa, boom, papa, boom, bapa, boom. What do
Boom,
you
bapa,
mean?
boom, boom, bapa, boo I mean, like, if this was 1954 instead of 1994, I would have been way more sympathetic. And I know Jimmy Vaughn is like a straight blues guy. But, I mean, we have to progress past 1954 at some point.
I,
We have to get past
I
there.
mean, I don't disagree with you
I
on
mean,
that front.
and here's the thing, like, that's my biggest problem with this album, like, I could listen to the blues all day long and enjoy it passively. And I did enjoy this album passively, and there were moments that I really liked. And it was even like, nominated for a Contemporary Blues Grammy, and it was given very positive
Sure.
reviews. But I'm like, when are we gonna start pushing the envelope, man? You can play really, really well, like, you nail the blues. There were some cool moments. I liked the acoustic songs mixed in. I thought the intro to Flamenco Dancer was great. I loved hearing the flamenco guitar.
Wasn't that such a moment where you were like, wait?
And then
And
it goes
then,
right back into the blues.
yeah.
And I think the title track, which was the closer, was really good. Probably the best track on the record. But it's just like, come on, man. Like, this is a
I get it.
good blues album,
Yeah.
but I need you to be just a little something more. I know somebody that he was very, very close to who was mostly a straight blues musician who was able to bring his own a little something more to it. And this album for me didn't have it. So it was just like a pleasant background listen. I would never be particularly motivated to pick this one out again.
Okay. I understand. I have a similar opinion, maybe a little more positive in a couple areas. Area number 1.
Super weird for you. You're usually the one who's like, "Blues musicians, move on."
I agree, and that is my big note.
Yeah.
There's 2 things about this album that basically didn't even matter what was being played almost in terms of genre. So, Jimmy Vaughn related to Stevie Ray
Oh,
Vaughan,
really?
for anybody who doesn't know. He's Stevie Ray Vaughan's older brother.
Mhm.
And for those of you who have heard Stevie Ray
Oh,
Vaughan,
yeah, it's you can hear it.
he is 10 times the singer that Stevie Ray Vaughan was, though. Stevie Ray Vaughan's like, he is not known for a singer.
Yeah.
He
I don't
sings.
mind his singing.
I don't mind it in the context of the blues, but I wouldn't call him a good singer.
Sure.
I would say, oh, he can sing the blues
Yeah.
and he plays amazing.
Yeah.
This guy can sing. I mean, he's not wow, you blow your socks off singing, but I was expecting for somebody who's like the older brother of Stevie Ray Vaughan who never kind of hit that level of fame,
Right.
I was expecting him to be a good guitar player and maybe a worse singer.
Hmm.
And I got somebody who
Yeah.
is
I
probably not as good of
don't
a
even
guitar
know if I
player, but a
noticed.
better singer.
Yeah, and it's what's hilarious is listening to this because I never really listened to Jimmy solo stuff before is, boy, do you hear that they are both not only influencing each other, but like Albert King, probably more so than anyone else. Like it's so clear in both of them. You could almost listen to two of the records and say, like, the guys playing this must be at least brothers.
Yeah, 100%. I totally get it. And I would say Jimmy even more so has the king in him
Mhm.
with the way he chooses his riffs and writes his songs, because that's the other thing I'll give him credit for. Full blues album, but he did
Yeah.
write
Oh, for sure.
most or all the
Mhm.
songs. And the real thing I was going to give him credit for, because I do agree with you, he like it's very simple blues in terms of its overall structure.
Right. The
And
songwriting is what lacks more than the performance.
correct, the performance is all good, except I did really enjoy his tribute to Stevie Ray.
Mhm.
So Six Strings Down was
Yeah.
his like written performed tribute for his brother who tragically passed away. As we've mentioned, if you're a musical artist, never get on a plane.
Never.
Ever do not. I
Don't
mean,
do it. Or
not a small plane.
for some of you, don't even get in a car.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's true. Maybe just stay where you are. Just
yeah,
Zoom
just
your concerts.
exactly.
But regardless of that, the the tribute to Stevie Ray was really nice,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
you could feel the emotion in it.
Mhm.
Other than that, I totally agree with you, though. It's very simple by the book, and I was not upset, but I wanted more.
Exactly, that's what it is. Because my
Yeah,
frustration that's why I tried to make it clear at the beginning. I liked listening to this album,
yeah.
but
And here's the thing with Out There, it's similar. I mean, it's similar. There's maybe slightly more variance at times if I'm really trying to be generous here. What I'll say with this song, with this album and song, the title song, there never hit a moment that was as emotional for me,
yeah,
which I guess is hard because the emotion behind it. And I mean, 94 is still very fresh to be singing about
yeah,
Stevie Ray passing away. And so, of course, like, I guess maybe it's almost too much to expect for you to hit that same emotion, right? Like trying to be reasonable
yeah,
about it.
mhm,
But it's just like I needed that emotion to pull me out of feeling more like you did. You know what I mean? About
yeah,
the
no,
first
I get that.
album. So, like, without that, I'm kind of agreeing with your first album technique and review here.
Mhm,
I wanted more progression from the blues. I wanted more variation and movement. Well, one thing that I do like about him, just based on it's purely different. You know what I mean? Because
mhm,
he does so few things different here. I definitely heard more in this album that he doesn't do bass. So
oh,
in the tracks, and I looked this up to confirm it
okay,
because I wasn't hearing any bass playing, and I was like, "Am I just
yeah,
deaf?" He uses the Hammond, the low end of the Hammond, to
okay,
make
yeah,
up for
yeah,
that to create a kind of different sound.
mhm.
So I want to give him credit for that because at least it's something
Oh, for
different.
sure, yeah,
But I wish there was something more different, like maybe
yeah,
the song sounded different.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, like, here's what it is, like, I enjoyed listening to this album again. I would have rather played it than listened to it, though. Like, at some point, like at a couple of points during my listening to Jimmy Vaughn's albums, I just picked up the guitar next to me and like played a couple licks along with it to make it more interesting.
Sure.
Um, I just want some boundary to be pushed. And if that's not going to happen, at least maybe provide so much energy that like I forget that no boundaries are being pushed. Like Stevie was not just pure blues. Obviously, he did have some like jazz influences and other things that influenced his playing. Um, but there were so much like frenetic energy, uh, like
Yeah.
almost like a live experience to listening to his records. So it
And
almost
Jimmy
didn't
doesn't wear a
matter.
hat.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't wear a hat. Um, so for that reason, this album and a lot of Jimmy stuff will just remain stuff like I would love playing along to as a record. Like records I want to listen to only if I have a guitar in my hands, then I can enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I get you. I understand.
So am I finishing us out here then?
You
Baby,
are.
please come home. Okay, so time has passed. But also in terms of like songwriting style or song selection style, I should say, like who would know? But the thing I just mentioned the last album didn't have, this album has in droves. This became by far my favorite album from Jimmy to listen to. It like the vibe is it's almost felt like you're in studio with a real blues and soul great back in the 50s. Like you're in the studio with Ray Charles when he's making a record. And that's what listening to this album felt like. It was such a departure from the first two for me for that. You know, I really, really like this. I felt like this is what this album has is what all of his other albums needed to get away with being blues albums, especially like as late as they were coming out without having something else to them.
Yes. So the word that I put was atmosphere.
Sure. Yeah.
This album, as opposed to the first two, really contributed to an overall atmosphere throughout the album, which you did quantify in a really good way of saying like it felt you're in the studio with a pure legend from
Yeah.
the
And like
time.
everyone's having fun. Like it's having like
Yeah,
so much energy in the room. You can almost feel
exactly.
that.
And you get that real sense of enjoyment. It almost feels like Jimmy Vaughn probably went through a bit of a time after Stevie Ray and released good stuff, but it felt a little flat.
Hmm.
And then maybe since the years in between, he just like loved music again or something.
Right.
That like, and obviously that's all speculation, but like it feels that way. It felt
Could
that
have
way
been.
in the album. It was like you something has reinvigorated you
Yeah.
in a sense where like I feel your passion again.
100%.
And that was really, really good to hear. I'll tell you, I mean, still blues in a lot of ways, still similar-ish sound.
Yeah.
So like it wasn't like a full departure. It's not like he released like a Latin pop dance album. Like it wasn't like that crazy of a departure.
Yeah.
But just that little tweak that's like it almost makes me a little more upset for the first two albums when I'm like, dude,
I
you
know.
did it.
That's yeah. Like, I almost wonder if maybe he had the same band and studio for the first 2
Yeah.
albums as he did for this one, and the energy was there just, like, live recording all this stuff. Then they would've been great.
You know what? Instead of being disappointed, I'll just be happy we got it.
Yeah, and I am too. So, I guess I should talk about this guy. 6 Degrees. He was the brother of Stevie Ray. I could have done that.
I mean you could have.
I coulda also have gone with the fact that he was on an episode of the show Austin City Limits performing with Foo Fighters and Gary Clark Jr., both of whom we have
Fascinating.
covered. But instead, I will go with way back in 1969, way before he was releasing
We
solo
went to the
records.
moon that year.
That's right. Maybe. That's what they want you to think. Um, so he was playing in a group that was opening for a group that we have covered actually called the Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Sure, sure.
And so Jimmy lends Jimmy his wah pedal, and let me try to be more clear. Jimmy V lends Jimmy H his wah pedal, and Jimmy H breaks the wah pedal.
Oh, of course he does. Of course he does.
Yes. So that was one of Jimmy V's early experiences in guitar.
Was taking Jimi
Yeah.
Hendrix to small claims court
Yeah,
for
exactly.
the cost of a
That's
wah
right.
pedal.
So here is something that is unique. And I was having a little bit of trouble with this, but then, I mean, here's the thing. How many other artists have we covered that have been in a band that had success with like a top 40 hit, been extremely well respected within the musicians and guitar communities, and been completely wiped from the public spotlight and overshadowed by 1,000 times by their little brother?
Uh, that's pretty true. I mean, that's a good point. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else that comes to mind.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think so. I think that is a pretty unique
You know,
thing.
he was the one doing it first. He was the one who had success on the national stage first. He has all the accolades within the musicians community itself, and outside of that, no one would know.
What
But
about
everyone would
Nick
know
and
Stevie.
Aaron Carter?
Y Alright, I stand corrected, I'll find a new one. Um, the highlight of his career.
If that's where I had to go, I think we're good though. I
I think
mean,
we're
dear
good.
Lord.
So he has 4 Grammys, actually, Jimmy does.
Good for
2
him.
of them were in collaboration with Stevie. Um, so that's pretty cool for him, I'm sure, to have those as well as some with his brother. And in 2020, he was actually just given the Traditional Blues Male Artist of the Year award at the Blues Music Awards.
Good for him.
Yeah, you
That's good.
you
I mean, a lot of obviously super talented.
Oh, definitely. The level very clear. Um, it was,
Yeah.
uh, just the year before. It wasn't too much before his death. They had released the record Family Style together. It seemed like they were
1990.
touring. Yeah, and I think he died in '91, if I'm not wrong. Um, but,
He died in
it's
1990.
Oh, he died in late 90?
Yeah, August of 1990.
Oh, wow, okay. So that album was posthumous then. Interesting. But, I mean, clearly, it seemed like they were gonna work together and have more success
Yeah.
together, and he would, enjoy getting to do that with his brother, and that was tragically taken away from him. Um, so there's that. For Meanest or Nicest, here's the one thing that I did find,
Okay.
which I would like everyone to take with a grain of salt because I don't have all the information in the world. But for the last, well, as this article is as of 2017. So there was a motorcycle club um, that was led by this woman, Teresa Barksdale, and she basically they have this event like the SRV Remembrance Ride where they raise money for Stevie Ray's charity or that was maybe set up uh, after his death, you know, um, it would be the Stevie Ray Memorial Scholarship Fund for musically gifted children. So there you go.
Okay.
So all the money would go to that cause. Um, and they'd been doing it for years and raising all this money, doing their ride, giving the money to his foundation until right around 2016, 2017, when Jimmy Vaughn sent a cease and desist letter to the charity, basically saying, we gave you guys the rights to use his name for your charity for that 1 year. And you've been doing it over and over and over and over and over again and raising all these funds off of his name. But you only got approval from the family for 1 year. And there may be more to it than that. Obviously, like I skimmed through the article and I didn't get too much on his side of why he was doing it. I I would hope that there must be like a really good reason, seeing as it seems like the money is all just being raised to be donated to his brother's charity.
Yeah,
There's got to be more to it than meets the eye.
right.
I would think.
I would say there has to be. And whether that I mean, I'm not even saying that there's necessarily anything shady with the charity or with the foundation.
Right. Yeah.
It could be something as simple as, like, Jimmy's accountant recommended something to him or like his team of lawyers or
Sure.
whatever, and he just
Yeah.
did it without doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I know a
Sure.
lot of
Yeah.
times, like certain like lawsuits and cease and desists and stuff happen without a person really knowing. Like they have a legal team
Really. Yeah.
and they handle stuff for them.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of that's true. It could just be Jimmy's kind of a dick about it. I don't know,
Could be.
but it's
Yeah.
definitely.
I'd like to hope that
I
he's
would
not.
also like to hope that he's not.
So that's that really. And it's time for us to
Okay,
grade.
it's time for the for some scoring.
Okay. I would argue that one of these names gets more points than the other,
I
and it's Peter
I would
Frampton.
argue that you're probably correct. Peter Frampton is. I would argue you could say he's a household name, maybe because of the time period we're in currently. He's
Yeah.
an every other household name. Not people
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
who Peter Frampton is, but he may not be on the tip of the
Sure.
tongue of everybody.
Mhm. Yeah.
But the sheer number of people that he has affected, influenced, the talk box, the
Yeah, that's pretty big. I think the talk box is worthy of consideration here and his impact on the use of that.
I definitely think so. And I think there's a lot of things to be said for his significance.
I agree.
I don't think we're necessarily in the stratosphere though,
No,
for to
no,
be
I don't think
sure.
so either. I think we're looking honestly, we're saying all this to put him around an average
I think
score.
that's right around. I think maybe a little bit
Yeah,
above a 5, but not above a 5, if you know what I'm saying.
like a 5
That's
2.
what I'm loving. I'm loving a 5 too.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Jimmy Vaughn is not gonna do as well.
Unfortunately, no.
I mean,
He gets a little
he's
bit.
highly well respected. He definitely gets points. He's known for things. He's played with a ton of different people.
Yeah.
Um, he's definitely on the blues circuit if you're looking like just at that particular
Yeah.
community. Suit like very big. Um,
It's tough because like if you look into it a little bit,
yeah,
I feel like he may also
it's a
get
niche community.
like a point 1 or something for his brother. I mean, if you're the brother of
Stevie
an
Ray. Yeah.
extremely famous person and you're in the same field, you get a little bit of that. Just,
Okay. Yeah.
it's
So
that
what do you
nepotism
think it
point.
is? Yeah. I don't think it's very high really.
No,
Um,
I mean, I'll tell you what, and I'm not even saying we go here. I'm saying
yeah.
my ceiling is like a 2.
Yeah,
That's my
I think it's
ceiling.
less than that.
I agree that it's probably less than that.
I could give him
Uh,
a 1 point something. I don't even know if it's how high it is in the ones.
maybe like a 1.4.
Sure.
I
That's
think that's
fine.
fair. I think you have the blues community. You have his awards that he's won. He's obviously been on the stage and
Mhm.
won awards and been a name for long enough in that community that I think it's a long enough
That's
time.
fair.
Also, I want to be clear about something.
You're
Just
being very
because
unclear.
I had misremembered based on our podcast data, Stevie Ray Vaughan died in a helicopter crash, not a plane
Oh,
crash.
that's true. That's true.
So the planes and helicopters are different. The overwhelming majority of crash deaths that we've covered on the podcast
Small
have been
aircraft.
small aircraft, which I guess a helicopter could be a small aircraft. So we're
Yeah.
back. We're
Yeah, we're good.
back.
We're good.
All right. Breath of Work.
Yeah, so, Peter's got 18 records. He's starting at a 6.1. His sales from Frampton Comes Alive alone are gonna push him above that. I think we're probably looking
Yeah,
at the neighborhood of, like, 30 million in sales.
I think so. I mean, you're getting a large number of albums, and then you're getting obviously all of those sales from Frampton Comes Alive.
Yeah, so he's a 6.4 or a 6.5, I would say, to start here.
I think we could start him at a 6.4. I think that's fair.
Very good, and then what would you like to give him in terms of points?
I'll tell you what, this is a guy who simultaneously subverted my expectations twice. once with the live album, and I talked about it already. I won't say it again, but the quality and all
Mhm.
the way through. And then for the instrumental covers album, those are two things that bore me.
Sure.
A cover album typically bores me because a lot of times if you're doing a whole album of covers, they're just covers.
Mhm.
And like if you're doing a cover of something, you have to be either better or different.
Right.
That's just what it is. I've heard people do covers that are now more well known than the original because they're better
Yeah.
or they're different.
Mhm.
A great example of different but still both equally great is Otis Redding and the Black Crowes versions of Hard to
Hard to
Handle.
handle.
So very different, but both great.
Okay. Yeah.
Peter Frampton does a thing where they're not super different. They're just different in
But
terms of
they're
not having a
great.
lyricist, but they're great and they interest me the whole time.
Yeah.
So I think all of that to be said, I'm going to give him a 0.3.
As am I. So that puts him at a 7. And we're moving on to Jimmy. I don't think sales are doing much for him here. He's got
No.
6 studio albums, so he starts at a 5, but he's probably going down.
Yeah, he's going down. I couldn't really find anything sales based. I'm sure you probably didn't
Yeah.
have a good time either,
No.
but I didn't find anything certifications or charting wise. Even his album that he did with Stevie Ray wasn't super
Yeah,
successful.
I think he had his first album, Strange Pleasure, might have charted at, like, 124 or 127,
Yeah.
and that's, like, the highest he's ever been.
So do we take the half a point away then, you think?
It's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we can give him something ba I'll give him a point 1 back, though, because I did enjoy his last album would have been like a 1 adding almost point 2 by itself. The first 2 are more like adding a nothing to a point 1, so I'm averaging it out at a point 1.
Yeah, and I will do the same for the same reasons.
Perfect.
All the same stuff.
Instrumental talent, I think they both do well here, though. I think to
Yeah.
me, though, the edge with the backing band and with vocals included with the guitar stuff is gonna go to Frampton.
I would agree with you on that. Frampton
Yeah.
is I think different style of guitar, so it's
Mhm.
hard to really super compare them
Yeah.
directly here.
Frampton is super bluesy, but he's a little bit more too, whereas
Yeah,
Jimmy Vaughn kinda stays in his lane a little bit.
exactly. So I'll say for me, I would be putting Frampton probably in like that 6 range.
Okay.
Like 6s.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Not like a
I'm
6, but
higher than that.
6s. I don't
I would
I
be on
don't
the higher
necessarily.
end.
Yeah, you think would you have thought in the 7s though?
I could have been talked into the high 6s to low 7s
And
range.
that's where I feel anyway. So we're in the same page.
Okay.
Uh the higher end of the 6s for me, I think he's an above average singer and a really good
Yeah,
guitarist who
really,
is
I mean, for
really
that
emotive.
yeah. Yeah,
So
I'm
I
giving him
think
a 6.9. I'm
a
doing it.
6'9", I love it. I love a 6'9".
And Jimmy Vaughn,
Nice.
I'm a little lower on. Although
I
he's
love that
also
slow burn
really
that I hit you
excellent.
with.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, listen. Okay, here's what it's going to boil down to for me. If we start at a 6'9", right? Because if we're
Mhm.
saying, the 6'9" is now the 10 for this episode in my
Sure.
brain right now,
Mhm.
comparing him to Frampton. Vocally, he's not as strong as Frampton.
Correct.
I think I think he's an average singer, which was a mark over his brother, which is why I was so impressed.
Mhm.
But I think he's like a 5 singer, and I think as a guitarist, something that is kind of similar between the two of them. It's not really the way they sound, but it's that I think Jimmy Vaughn does a great job of letting the instrument breathe. He's not
Yeah.
playing a whole bunch of
100%.
blues licks back and forth. He's
Yeah.
playing
No, I
like
fully agree with you.
in between the lyrics and stuff where it fits
They're both
and the
emotive.
lines are succinct.
Yep. Fully agree.
So I would probably say that if I were going to just quantify his playing by itself, he might be like a 6 for me, but with average vocals bringing him down to maybe like a 5-7.
Okay, see, I was thinking again, I'm a little bit higher on both of these guys guitar-wise. I was
Okay.
thinking that he would probably be closer to like a 6 or a 6.1 when things average out at the end of the day. Because
So
I do think
5-9.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I think
Well,
as a
because if you're thinking 6'1", I'm thinking
yeah,
5'7".
for me, he loses a little because of he's less versatile on his instrument
Yeah,
compared to Frampton, but, like, he's still a pretty damn excellent blues guitar player.
for sure. Absolutely. I I think part of the thing with this mini season we're doing is that we've picked people, and you've chosen the
That's
list,
true.
that are all like well above average at their
Yeah,
instrument.
exactly.
So
That's
like
true.
we know that they're going to be
Yeah,
great at it.
that's very fair. Alright, songwriting, again, the edge is going to Frampton for me. Frampton has more diversity on his albums by a significant amount.
Yeah.
Even though his last album was a covers album, it was arranged phenomenally well. Um,
Yeah, and here's the thing. I with the cover album, because I'm the one who harps on covers
yeah,
and cover
and
albums.
to keep he still has plenty of original
That's what it is.
albums.
17 albums of 90% or more original
Yeah, I
music.
mean, I'm
It's
not worried about it. I'm
me
still
neither.
again in the 6s for a score for Frampton here.
I think that's totally fair. I think the variations, I think he's super competent and super varied with his writing. And I think that is what you need in the genre and in the stylings
Sure.
that he does. I'm a big fan of it. I think probably lower than his playing though, so not a 6'9", maybe like a 6.5.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And for Jimmy Vaughn, look, like he writes blues songs well, but he only writes blues songs, and it, to me, it's below average, but in the fours.
Yeah, and I want to be clear here. I agree with you, but I do want to give Jimmy Vaughn a lot of credit for we listened to 3 blues albums and almost all of them were written by Jimmy
Oh
Vaughn.
yeah, sure.
And since blues is something that's so standard
Mhm.
now, it's something that most of the time when we get a blues album after like 1980, there's at least 3 or 4 old standard
Yeah.
covers because you're trying to use a famous
Mhm.
name to boost your sales of like,
Yeah.
oh, come listen to my cover of Crocodile Crocodile by Billy Jinks and the Kids. Like
Yes,
that's,
that's one of my favorites.
yeah, everybody check out Crocodile Crocodile by Billy Jinks and the Kids.
Jesus Christ.
But
All right, let's give him
yeah,
like a
that's
4-7 and move on with our lives.
4-7 works. Let's
Poetic
go.
talent. Um,
This is
it's fine.
yeah.
Whatever.
Here's what I'll tell you. Frampton, average.
Yeah.
I mean he's not
5.
gaining a bunch of points.
I'll
Here's a
give him 5.
Nothing offensive, nothing that took me out of any song, but nothing I had a wow moment on.
Yeah, exactly.
Jimmy Vaughn. There's
Bop,
2
boom.
things about it. Forget Boom Baba Boom. Remove it from your brain real quick for
Bip
me.
bap.
It's no mumbo bip bop. It's no mumbo and bip bop. So boom bapa boom is fine. Because at least they're words I can think like I know. I know boom, I know papa, I know boom. I've never heard mumbo or bip bop. So moving on. Moving on.
Every time.
I know. Something that I loved about the albums for Jimmy Vaughn is the lyrics were lyrics.
Mhm.
So like in blues,
Not just like the same thing twice and then
yeah,
like a
in
slight variation
blues,
the third time.
so often it's like, I want to kiss a girl and she wants to kiss me, and then we're gonna kiss, and then we're gonna climb a tree. Like that's it. There's just no. It's all just. I mean, hell, I should write that song now. I'm
Yeah,
in.
I mean, I'm in.
But like, it's all just kind of almost nonsense to just make the
Sure.
song happen, and there was definitely lyrics and there were stories in the songs, and it was very interesting to me that there were. And then I found out that one of the things that people like compliment Jimmy Vaughn on is that he was smart enough to bring in writers to write the lyrics of his blues songs so they were good.
Ah,
So
so he
I
doesn't write the
cannot,
lyrics.
yeah, from my very limited research, it seems to me like he doesn't write the lyrics.
Yikes.
Um,
So, do we
except
know
he
enough
probably
to
wrote
confirm it
them.
as
I
like
don't
a
know enough to
0.1?
confirm to give him a 0.1. So
Okay.
what I want to do is I'm going to give him the score we would give him if we just judged his lyrics as they are, with the potential after the recording that I may do a little more research and we can edit the score down to the point one
Okay.
if we feel that way.
Sure.
I don't feel, just based on kind of the vibe I'm getting this episode, I feel like it won't affect the score, the final of this episode.
That's fair.
So I'm not worried about it at the moment.
And you shouldn't be.
So score wise,
So probably a 10
I would
then.
give him score wise, I would give him probably like a 3.5 because
Done.
the lyrics are relatively plain and it's all blues, but they're very good for blues.
I agree. Anything for X Factor?
The only thing that I ever had for X Factor for Frampton, we kind of put into his cultural
Talk
impact, which
box.
was the talk box.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to move past that. And then I'm going to give you final scores. And winning this week's episode
I want you to tell me the score.
is Peter Frampton with a score of 30.6.
Sure.
Yep.
You go, Framp.
You go, Frampton. And Jimmy Vaughn came in second with a score of 20.2. So it was a pretty decisive victory.
That's what I kind of felt the vibe we were going down.
I think so.
That's why I was like, you know what, this lyrical potential thing is not going to affect. By the time it affects anything in the overall stats, we'll have it right.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Next week is the conclusion. It's the final episode of season 6.5.
It is.
And so we have pitted two very distinct characters against each other.
Yep.
One is a guitarist known very much based on the fact that no one knows what he looks like because he is always wearing something to cover his head. And the other one is one of the infamous three kings of the development of blues.
Yep.
So we shall have to find out how they square off against each other next time.
Yeah, I figured it out. I know who it is, by the way.
Of course.
It's you versus King Charlemagne.
That's correct.
Yeah, I did
hand-to-hand
figure
combat.
it out. I don't know. I that means that you always have something covering your face, which I'm fascinated what is covering your face because the other one is King Charlemagne, and we know King Charlemagne is a king. So I don't know. I'm curious. When we're off camera here, I'm going to need you to peel off that flesh tone mask you have on.
Okay. And have a great day.
No, but thank you all for tuning in. If you're hanging out with us, listening to us each and every week, one, we appreciate it. Two, like it, comment, subscribe, any of that stuff you can do. Try to get the word out here. We're up and coming, but we want to have arrived. So let us know what we can do to make it ourselves better for you. Because I'll tell you, we will change for you. I can fix you and I will change for you. And on that note, have a great day.
Excellent.
Cool. Good. Yeah, I read that. I was like, no, it was the only thing I liked.
Yeah, that's
brutal.
Rough.
Cool.
So who do you want? I was going to say I'll take Buckethead unless you really want him.
No, no, you can have Buckethead.
Yeah, I figured.
I'm apprehensive about Buckethead.
Buckethead. So I have listened to a decent chunk of Buckethead in my life, and he has put out multiple albums that I love. And he has also put out albums that I don't like at all. So I will make sure that the one that we choose in the middle is one of his better ones.
Good. Please do. Please do. I want to have good.
I figured that was probably the reason, whereas we're not going to run into that problem with BB. With
probably not.
Blues Boy.
Yeah, probably not with old Blues Boy King there.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'll take care of the Buckethead. Let me.
Nice.
Oh man, hold on. I gotta real quick while we're on still. Okay, Buckethead discography. Here we go. One albums he has.
I'm not gonna look. I'm looking at BB King for the same reason. I mean, based on your face,
probably more than BB King.
Based on your face, I'm gonna say 50.
Hold on.
Am I crazy or am I low?
You are wrong. You are low.
Oh, here's the thing. I now hold on. Can I give another number?
Yes.
Because you said probably more than BB King, and BB King is 43. So
Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
say 90.
Yes, you are extremely close.
Like
So he
after I
has
pulled up BB King, I was like, wait a minute.
he has released studio albums and then also a series of studio albums called the Pike series, which
Okay.
are like generally like they're still studio albums, but they're at that like minimal time. Um, they're mostly like released by number, although several of them have names. They're anywhere between 29 and 40 minutes long.
Okay.
He has released 435 albums.
435?
Uh-huh.
Well, we're gonna have to grade him on a curve.
I would imagine. Yeah, so the Pike series, so he released his first 29 studio albums as regular studio albums, then he started this Pike series. Um, and they're, I think, like improvisational albums, like where a lot of the content is all new and it's
Yeah.
recorded in studio instead of live, but they're done in a way that's improvisational. And he has released about 400 of them. So he's just putting out dozens and dozens every year.
Well, here's what I'll tell you. He's gonna have to get credit on a curve because if he wasn't, his score would be 72.
Now, to be clear, you start with 6.7 points if your 31 albums are above.
I know because we
There's
because we graded on a curve, Nick.
yes.
Because we input a curve
I
of
think
saying
we
like,
we can't neglect the fact that he's released
we'll
435
have to
albums,
talk
though.
about it for sure. Um, holy hell, that's so many.
It's so many.
Okay,
It's so many.
it's fine. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's
All right,
already been done.
yeah, there were 2 Buckethead albums that I love, by the way, that I was looking between to figure out which one I was gonna recommend.
Okay.
And I don't know how this never even occurred to me. One of them is 54 minutes and the other one's 70. 71, really. So probably the 54-minute one.
Yeah, yeah, that's where we are. That's where we go.
Yeah.
Here's the real question. What do we do with BB King?
All right, I haven't looked
Oh,
at his discography yet.
I actually think we're good.
Oh, good.
Holy crap. And this is truly wild stuff. Hold on.
All right.
Hold on. I need to make sure of something.
Oh, shit.
Are you looking at his discography?
Are you Oh, it's Riding with the King where everything starts going crazy.
Yeah.
Which do we do that? Because it's a
Well,
collaboration album with Clapton. We could do Deuces Wild from
that's
'97.
that's the one I was looking at. I think Deuces Wild might
Okay.
be better
And
because
honestly, yeah, because 'cause I'm looking at the track listing right now. It's a lot of his classic tunes, and it's one of those where he's doing it with Van Morrison, Tracy Chapman, Eric Clapton,
yep,
Bonnie Raitt, D'Angelo, Dr. John, the Rolling Stones, Joe Cocker, David Gilmour, Willie Nelson.
he's got
That'll be
it.
fucking cool.
That's the
Oh,
one I was looking at.
And Pino plays bass on this record too.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm in
I
on that
love
one.
that because I also love that like whether BB himself came up with that album title or not, or whoever came up with it, so clever because you're working with a bunch of in twos with famous musicians. So you call it Deuces
Yeah,
Wild. I love it.
absolutely.
I love it. But you
Yeah,
mentioned
that's great.
somebody that I wanted to give you an update on. I wasn't sure if you maybe heard this through the grapevine. Tracy Chapman just officially became the first woman to win a CMA, or the first African American woman to win a CMA award
Huh,
for that dude's cover of Fast Car.
interesting.
So she officially won like as like a writer of a
Sure.
country song, which apparently has never been done before. I get it, but
Shocker that country music has not given awards to black women. I can't believe it. Oh, no.
all right, I deserve that. I was just saying it was fun. It's a fun fact. We love Tracy Chapman
Whoever
here,
would
so
have
good for
thought?
her to win every award.
I can't believe that there could ever even be a hint of racial bias in that institution of all places.
To be fair, it could just be maybe black women aren't writing a lot of country songs. I don't know.
Why the fuck would they?
I what I can tell you is congratulations to Tracy Chapman. A well-deserved award.
Agreed.
And also, I'm gonna be honest with you, your version's still the better version of that song to me.
I never even really listened to the other one. Only
I'll tell
hearing
I
it.
think it was
Yeah.
Luke Combs that came out with it, and I'll
Sure.
tell you, it's a good cover. It's a faithful
Sure.
cover, and what I like about it is he doesn't change the gender of the character singing the song, so it
Right.
feels like he's doing a cover instead of doing an original,
Gotcha.
and I will give him a lot of credit for it. It was
Yeah.
very faithful, but I still like Tracy Chapman's version better.
Fair enough.
It is what it is.
Well,
Okay, good old BB. Cool. So yeah, we have BB's 3, and we have you'll give me text me
it's
Buckethead 3
Colma.
still.
Yeah. But
I
I'll
will
text it to you.
I won't remember it, especially
Yeah,
not
I
right
have to
now.
figure out what it honestly, it'll probably be harder to figure out what the fuck his last album was.
Yeah, unless you're gonna pick one of his
Alright,
random.
Buckethead Land was the first one. Then instead of Electric Tears, we'll do Colma. And then let's see, that one's right. So the one that's officially number 435 is no, wait, that says 457. So this hasn't been updated.
Stop.
Yeah, 2023, in the year 2023, he was on his 358th album. And since then, he has released 99 albums this year. He's released 99 albums this year.
Okay.
What?
I'm pretty sure in second place for albums released could be Willie Nelson with 93.
Yeah. And it's a distant
That's
second.
less than Buckethead released this
This
year.
year.
Jesus. Are we
What
going to do one of the
fuck?
Pike series then? I guess we should. There's so many
Yeah.
of them.
I'm sure, honestly, if anything, they're only on YouTube, and that'll be easy to find. This one is called Rays of the Magic Lantern. It's only 27 minutes, so that'll help
Okay.
balance the length of the first one.
Yeah, it'll be good to get an idea of what the hell the Pike series is.
Yeah, I agree.
So that'll be good. So we'll do that, and then Colma, and then whatever his first one is.
Yeah, Buckethead
Which
Land,
is
but I'll
probably
text it
just,
to you.
yeah. Okay, cool. All right.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna roll because I
Great.
gotta skedaddle.
Yeah, you gotta go see some grandparents.
Yeah, I gotta skedaddle. But thanks for hanging out, everybody. Who nobody's here, so I'm gonna stop
That's
that.
right.
But I'll say goodbye to you.
Adios.
Adios.